Picture a quiet street on a Sunday morning. The bells start to ring across the rooftops. A father lifts his small daughter so she can reach the holy water by the church door. She dips her fingers in. She makes the sign of the cross. She has watched him do it 100 times. Now it is hers too. He sets her down, and she runs ahead into the cool dark of the church. Past the candles, toward the pew where her family always sits. That tiny moment is what so many parents are quietly hoping for. A place where faith is not a fight. A place where the kids do not roll their eyes on the way to Mass. A place where it just feels like home. So a parent went online and asked a simple question. Where in America can a family actually live like this? Where can you raise children in the faith without feeling alone? Thousands of people answered. Some had moved across the country to find it. Some had been born into it and never left. And the 6 cities they named are not the ones you would guess. Stay with me to the very end, because the city that took the top spot surprised almost everyone, including the people who voted for it. Here's the thing about all 6 of these places. They were not built in a day. Most of them were planted by immigrants who arrived with almost nothing. French settlers who came up the rivers. German farmers who broke the prairie. Families who crossed an ocean with their faith folded up in their pockets and little else. They were poor. They were tired. And yet again and again they did the same strange thing. They built a church before they built almost anything else for themselves. A simple wooden one at first. Then a bigger one of brick and stone. And the town slowly grew up around those churches like rings on a tree. The school came next so the children would not lose the faith of their parents. Then the hospital, run by sisters who asked for nothing. Then the homes, the shops, the streets. The church was not just one building in the town. The church was the seed the whole town grew from. That is a very different way to build a place. And you can still feel it today in every one of these 6 cities. The faith is not bolted on at the edges. It is buried deep in the roots. Keep that idea in your mind as we count down, because it is the quiet thread that ties all 6 of these cities together. We are going from number 6 all the way up to number 1. Let us begin. Number 6 is Wichita, Kansas. One person who knew the city well put it plainly. The parishes here are healthy, the priests are good, and the schools are some of the best around. Another said they grew up in Wichita and called it a wonderful place to raise a family. They even shared something that stops most parents in their tracks. The Catholic schools here are free to families who give back to the church. No crushing tuition. No choosing between a Catholic education and paying the bills. And then came the line that made people sit up. A third person said that if you travel to Rome and meet priests who work at the Vatican, they will tell you again and again that Wichita is one of the very best places for the faith in the whole world. Why would priests on the other side of the planet know a quiet city in Kansas? Because of something rare that happens here. So many young men and women choose to give their entire lives to the church. That is what people mean by a vocation. A vocation is simply a calling. A young person deciding to become a priest or a nun, to give up marriage and money and an ordinary life. For God, in most of the country, that choice is getting rarer every year. In Wichita, it is almost ordinary. Picture a local church region, the area a single bishop watches over, holding around 112,000 Catholics across roughly 90 parishes. That is a lot of full pews on a Sunday. The roots here go deep. The first Catholic church in Wichita, called St. Mary's, was set up back in 1872, when the place was still half frontier. A few decades later, the city wanted something that would last. Builders broke ground on the great Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in 1906. They laid the cornerstone the next year. And in 1912, it was finished and blessed by one of the most famous churchmen in America at the time. Wichita is quiet. Some people even call it boring. But ask the families raising children there, and they will smile, because boring is exactly the point. Boring means safe streets. Boring means the same friendly faces every Sunday. Boring means your children growing up surrounded by people who believe what you believe, and a school that will never apologize for it. For a parent, that kind of boring is worth more than gold. Number 5 is Phoenix, Arizona. One parent described it in a single excited breath. A huge Catholic community, thriving and growing, with plenty of lively and traditional parishes to choose from. And the numbers back that up. The Catholic community across the Phoenix region runs well over 1 million people, with many thousands of children filling its parish schools. There are Catholic colleges here too, and the church runs programs for students at several public universities. So a young person does not have to leave their faith at the door when they go off to study. But what makes Phoenix so interesting is how young the church here really is. The local church region was only created in 1969, so this is not a place of ancient stone cathedrals worn smooth by time. This is a young church, growing fast in the desert sun. Then in 1981, a new bishop arrived, and he turned out to be a builder in every sense. He raised money. He opened schools. He stood up and spoke for the poor when few others would. And he managed something most leaders only dream of. He helped convince a pope and one of the most beloved nuns the world has ever known to come and visit the desert city in person. Imagine the streets that day. Families lining up for hours in the heat. Children sitting on shoulders. Strangers praying together just for the chance to be near someone they believed was holy. That is the kind of memory a city carries for generations. The crown jewel of Phoenix is St. Mary's Basilica. Raised in the early part of the last century in a warm, sun-baked Spanish style that fits the desert perfectly, Phoenix teaches you something hopeful. A strong Catholic family life does not only survive in old towns with old churches. It can be built brand new from the bare ground up inside a single lifetime. And for a young family moving to a fast-growing city for work, that matters more than you might think. You do not have to give anything up. The church is moving right along with you, building as fast as the city does. Number 4 is St. Louis, Missouri. A person born and raised there said it simply. There is a deep Catholic influence woven through this whole city. A few unusual parishes, sure, but so many truly solid ones. And the history here is remarkable. The very first parish in St. Louis was started in 1770 by French settlers who had come to trade along the river. Hold on to that date for a moment. It means the church here is one of the oldest in the entire country, sitting right near the very top of the list, with only a couple of cities in all of America older than it. The region grew so large and so important in those early days that people gave it a proud nickname. They called it the Rome of the West. That is a bold thing to call any American city, but the people who lived there meant every word of it. In the first cold weeks of 1999, a pope came to visit, the first time a pope had ever set foot in the city, and it was not really a stranger arriving on those steps. 30 years before, that same man had quietly visited the city as a younger churchman, long before the whole world would come to know his name and his face. Today, the region holds about 500,000 Catholics, with tens of thousands of children in its schools. And then there is the church itself. The great Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis holds one of the largest collections of mosaic art found anywhere on earth. A mosaic is a picture made from millions of tiny colored tiles, each one set by hand, piece by piece, over many long years of patient work. Stand inside that cathedral and tilt your head back, and the entire ceiling seems to glow like the inside of a jewel. For a family, St. Louis offers something rare and precious: deep roots and breathtaking beauty, inside a city big enough to build a whole real life within. Number 3 is Lafayette, Louisiana. And here the whole feeling changes. This is not a place where faith is simply one part of life among many. This is a place where faith is the very rhythm the rest of life moves to. One local said there is a Catholic church on nearly every corner and a Catholic school to match, and that their entire way of living turns around the life of the church. Another said that South Louisiana is deeply Catholic and deeply tied to family. Their own parish is so packed that they are getting ready to build a bigger church just to fit everyone in. Stop and think about that for a moment. Almost everywhere else, churches worry about empty seats and aging crowds. This place is running out of room. The people here will proudly tell you that by the plain numbers. Lafayette may well be the most Catholic city in the entire country, with a higher share of Catholics than even the big eastern cities, famous for their old Irish and Italian families. And it has been called one of the happiest cities in America too, which makes you wonder if the two things might be tied together. A full church and a full heart. The local church region was formed here in 1918. Today it holds around 290,000 Catholics. The mother church is the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, Step inside and you will find stained glass crafted by hand in Germany, glowing oil paintings of Christ and his apostles, and a magnificent pipe organ built by one of the most respected organ makers in the world, the kind that fills the whole building with sound. But the real treasure of Lafayette is not any single building. It is the way the faith and the food and the family and the music all blend together into one warm, loud, joyful life. Here, raising a Catholic family does not feel like swimming hard against the current. The whole town is swimming right beside you. Number 2 is Cincinnati, Ohio. One family described it as an awesome place to be Catholic. Lots of churches, lots of schools, Catholic festivals all summer long, where the whole parish spills out onto the lawn, with food and music and kids chasing each other between the tables. Another family said they had just joined a church there and could not get over the quality of the priests, the warmth, the welcome. Now here is where that immigrant thread we talked about at the start really shows its strength. The local church region in Cincinnati was created all the way back in 1821. At the very start, it covered the entire state. A few years later, a tireless bishop founded the first community of a certain group of religious sisters in the whole country, and he started a Catholic newspaper that is still remembered today as one of the oldest of its kind in America. But the real explosion came in the middle of the last century. A new archbishop took charge in 1950. What happened under his watch is almost hard to believe when you say it out loud. The region built 98 churches, 94 elementary schools, 14 high schools, dozens upon dozens of homes for priests and convents for sisters. Read those numbers again slowly. Nearly 100 churches and nearly 100 schools raised up in a single span of years. That is not a city merely keeping its faith alive. That is a city pouring concrete and faith together, side by side, as fast as its hands could move. 2 churches in particular still draw visitors from far away, both well worth a quiet visit. And one of them stands among the oldest churches left in the entire city. Cincinnati proves something powerful. A big, busy American city can choose, decade after decade after decade, to build for its children first. And the proof is simple. The buildings are still full. And now number 1, Evansville, Indiana. If you have never once heard of it, you are not alone. That is the exact reason it shocked so many people. One parent said the Catholic community here is incredibly strong, and that the way this city reaches out to its young people is something truly special. In fact, the area hosts one of the largest gatherings of Catholic young people in the entire country, where thousands of teenagers pour into one space to pray and sing and wrestle with who they really want to become. Picture that for a second. A sea of teenagers, the very age when most young people quietly drift away from faith forever, choosing instead to lean all the way in, hands raised, eyes closed, singing at the top of their lungs. Another parent said something that cuts straight to the heart of why this small city won the whole list. They said the parishes here have the kind of close, caring community that so many people feel is painfully missing back in their own hometown church. People are not strangers in the pew here. They are not lonely in a crowd. They are known by name, and there is one more thing that sealed it. Evansville sits only about an hour's drive from one of just 2 great monasteries of its kind in the entire nation. A place of deep, ancient prayer that ordinary families can actually drive to and visit. So the warm, everyday parish life and the deep, old roots of the faith sit right next door to each other. The local church region was created in 1944, carved carefully out of the larger region around the state capital, covering 12 counties across the southwest corner of the state. Today it is home to roughly 98,000 Catholics, and the history here reaches back further than almost anywhere else on this entire list. One church in the area, named for St. Francis Xavier, actually sits on land that was granted to the church by the King of France himself, with written records stretching back to the 1740s. Another, the Church of the Assumption, was founded in 1837 and stands as the very first Catholic church ever built in the city. So why did a small, quiet, almost unknown city beat all the famous ones? Because the people who voted were not chasing the biggest crowd or the grandest cathedral or the most impressive numbers. They were chasing that one single moment from the very start of this story. A father lifting a child up to the holy water. A community that knows your name when you walk in the door. A faith that feels deep down, like home. And in Evansville, more than anywhere else they could find, the families there will tell you that they found it, so there you have it. 6 cities stretching from the dry deserts of Arizona to the green bayous of Louisiana. Each and every one of them built by ordinary families, who simply put their church first and let the rest of their lives grow up around it. And the truth is honest and plain. The perfect city does not exist anywhere on this earth. No place is without its struggles. But a real, living, joyful Catholic community absolutely does exist. And after hearing all 6 of these stories, it might be far closer to you than you ever imagined. So if this list touched something in your heart, do one small thing for me before you go. Leave a comment and tell me the city where your own faith feels most like home. It does not have to be on this list. Maybe it is a tiny parish in a town nobody has heard of. Maybe it is the church you grew up in, the one with the cracked steps and the kind old priest. Wherever it is, I want to hear about it. I read every single comment that comes in, and I would truly love to know which place you would have put at number 1.